All right. Good evening and welcome to our class today. Today we have a topic which I promised that we will discuss today from the last class, which is relevant cost analysis. Now, this relevant cost analysis is important because it is used in analyzing things like limiting factor decisions, make or buy decisions, and shut down decisions. Remember the last class we had, we talked about make or buy decisions. Okay, so because of this make or buy decisions and shut down decisions, we are going to be talking about relevant costs, because relevant cost is being used in analyzing this situation. Costs that are relevant to decision making, we usually call them marginal costs. Now, if we want to see how we can analyze costs in order to see how they are relevant in any decision that we plan to take. So let us look at which costs are relevant and why are they relevant, and which costs are irrelevant. So relevant costs versus non-relevant costs. Now the following costs are relevant. A, variable costs. Variable costs are those costs that are incurred with varying level of activity. So if you do nothing, you produce nothing, you spend nothing, your variable cost is zero. If you produce less, then you spend less. If you produce more or much, you spend more or much. Hence, variable costs are spent in direct proportion to the level of activity. According to how much you produce, that is the level in proportion to how much you will spend. Examples of variable costs is material cost. Now, if you produce nothing, let's say you want to make cake and you need flour, materials. If you produce no cake, you won't spend anything on material. If you produce few cakes, like maybe 100 cakes, you spend as much material as that can cover. If you decide to spend more to make 500 cakes, piece of cakes, you spend as much material to meet that number. So you see, variable costs are relevant because of their varying or proportional way in which they occur. Now the next one is opportunity cost. What is opportunity cost? These are costs that are forgone as a result of choosing an alternative. Okay, so for example, you have an exam before you, which you are preparing for, and you deprive yourself of going on a vacation. Let's say you plan on going on a vacation to Obudukacho Ranch in November, and perhaps that's the period your exam is coming. You forgo the opportunity of going to enjoy yourself in vacation and you channel the money in your examination. So the cost of the examination is not actually the amount you spent buying the exam form, paying for lectures. No, because there was an alternative that you ignored, that you cancelled. That cost of going to that vacation in Obudu Cattle Ranch is the opportunity cost of the examination. So you see here, there is a choice embedded here. You could decide that you want to enjoy the holiday and then defer your exam to next time. It's a choice. The choice of deferment so as to enjoy the vacation is also an opportunity cost. So you see, whenever there is an alternative that you can choose, then you have to make decisions between two alternatives. That is relevant cost. So you see, relevant cost comes to play when there are alternatives. Okay, so the next one is incremental costs. Incremental costs are those costs that changes due to the decision taken by management. Okay, let's take, for example, fixed costs. Now, when we talk about incremental costs, we are talking in direct relationship with fixed costs because we all know that variable costs are always incremental. If you increase the volume, the cost will increase. But you know that is not so for fixed costs. But there is a time when fixed costs could increase. Let's say, for example, the cost of purchasing Zoom license to teach PM students here. Let's assume that assume we spent 5,000 naira to buy Zoom license, like the one we have here now. And we know that Zoom can take 100 students at once. So it doesn't matter if you are 2 students here, or 3 students, or 5, or 50 people in attendance, the cost will still remain 5,000. Now you see that is rigid. That is not incremental. You see, you have increased from 2 to 3 to 5 to 10 to 50 to 99. The cost is still the same. But by the time we increase to like 101, 110, you find out that anybody joining in after the 100th person, it will tell you that the group is filled up, and so the person cannot enter. So in order to accommodate the growing number, now this is the growing volume of activity, we could decide to do 2 things. One, we could hold 2 classes, maybe one in the afternoon and one in the evening. That's a choice. We could decide that, okay, let's increase the size of our Zoom capacity from 100 to like 300. That is another choice. So you see here now that fixed costs, which usually does not behave incrementally, is now facing a choice, facing alternatives. You now have to choose between increasing. In fact, when you now increase, you eventually choose to now increase the cost, pay the additional cost. That additional cost from the original is what we call incremental. It could be that I went to increase the size of my Zoom capacity, Maybe instead of paying 5,000, and I pay 8,000 naira. That extra 3,000 is incremental cost. All right, so the next one is future costs. Any cost that will be incurred in the future is seen as relevant. So when we can incur a cost in the future, it means that we are going to talk about the time, the future time. So how do you know that a cost is a future cost? You hear verbs that relate to the future. Okay, so for example, we may decide to hire more workers in the future to do certain jobs. I could decide to hire more teachers to join me. That is futuristic, the future cost. But what I'm doing right now, because I've already incurred, is no longer future. So anything you say will happen in the future, the expense you're going to make in the future is relevant. Now we also have avoidable costs. Now any costs that can be avoided is relevant to decision making. So all the while, all the first four costs that we have described above are all avoidable. For example, we said variable costs can be avoided because if we do nothing, we will spend nothing. And so if we do nothing, we have avoided variable costs. Opportunity costs can be avoided if we do not forego the alternative. So once you forego an alternative, you have avoided spending on that. Incremental costs can be avoided if you decide not to spend above your limits. That's a choice, decision. And future costs can be avoided if we do not carry out future production or investment plan. So you see, any cost that can be avoided is relevant. Now, enough for the relevant costs. Let's talk about the non-relevant costs. Chief among the non-relevant costs is fixed cost absorbed. So of course, you know that if variable cost is relevant, fixed cost is not. Fixed costs are based on a standard volume of activity and do not change with varying level of activity until the capacity used in the standard has been exceeded. Like I told you before, the Zoom license, the Zoom capacity is 100. And so the fixed cost doesn't change if you are using 5, 10, 15, 50, 90, 95. Until you reach a standard volume and want to exceed it, then the fixed cost will change. So as long as you have not exceeded the volume, fixed cost is not relevant. Sunk cost. Sunk cost is the opposite of future cost. These are costs that are made in the past. They have no bearing in the future. And so any cost that you hear the past tense, the verb used in the past tense, is not relevant. For example, the historical cost of material is not relevant. This cost is only useful in recording past details in financial accounting, but it is irrelevant to management decision making. So watch out for past tense related to costs. These are irrelevant. Okay, so what about committed cost? Commuted costs usually sounds as though it's a future cost. These are costs that are agreed upon that will be spent in the future. But don't be deceived by the futuristic nature of committed costs. They also have an element of sunk cost in it. For example, if you plan to use your, let's say, September salary for those working to pay for your examination, which is coming up in November, you use your September salary to pay it in October, and now we are in July. We are not yet in September, but you've budgeted that that is what you will use. So you've committed that part of your salary for examination. You don't plan with all the money you're going to receive that period. You only plan with the remainder. Let's say your salary is 100,000, for example, and the exam is 30,000. You don't plan with the whole 100,000. You usually plan with the remaining 70,000 because the 30,000 has been committed. Though it is going to be spent in the future, it is already taken as though it has been spent. And so it has elements of sunk cost in it. So that pledge you made on it now makes it assume the sunk cost nature. And so it is not relevant. So committed cost, how will you know a committed cost? You will see an agreement in the past, a commitment in the past, but the future, it's going to be paid or delivered or fulfilled in the future. That's how you know a committed cost. Then any cost that has non-cash flow. When we say non-cash flow, it means you don't involve the use of cash. A classic example of this is depreciation. We usually say that in accounting, depreciation is an operational expense. It's the value we give for wear and tear of an asset. But the asset is just having a wear and tear. No money value is actually being spent. But you just decide as an accounting jargon to assign a value for depreciation. But that depreciation does not involve the actual cash that you assign to it. It's just an accounting entry. So that kind of thing is a non-cash flow. Also, we have another one like profit. Profit is an accounting jargon. It is not an actual cash. So that's why even when you make a profit and loss statement, which is P&L or statement of comprehensive income, you still need to do what they call cash flow statement to see how the actual cash went or came. But profit statement will not tell you where your cash goes. It just tells you the accounting jargon, the accounting equation, and gives you something. So profit as a word, depreciation as a word, they do not involve the actual flow of cash. Then we have unavoided costs. Any cost that cannot be avoided is not relevant. Why? Because since you cannot avoid it, you must spend it one way or the other. You must spend it. And if you must spend it without avoiding it, then you can't make choices. And if you can't make choices, then it is not relevant in decision making. Take, for example, you want to attend a lecture center or a lecture venue. You may decide to think, oh, let me attend the one that is closer to me. So you attended the one near your house. And the reason for that is you want to avoid spending too much transportation. Now that is a variable cost. If you decide to attend the one further a bit from you, you spend more transport. If you decide that you want to do it online, the way you are doing right now, you spend nothing on transportation costs. So transportation cost now is avoidable. You can avoid it by taking the one closer to you or going online. This is avoidable cost. But you cannot avoid feeding. Now, irrespective of which center you attend, the one near you, the one by the side of your house, even the one further away from you, or even online, you still need to feed. And your fees and the feeding cost is the fixed cost. It doesn't change. Doesn't if you are used to eating in class, gala and mineral, the price of gala and mineral will still be the same whichever way you attend the lecture. So unavoidable costs like these are not relevant. Having seen the types of relevant costs and comparing them with non-relevant costs, let us now do some analysis on the relevant costs, because relevant costs are important in decision making. Now, there are two types of relevant costs that we want to discuss here. First one is the relevant cost of direct materials, and the second one is relevant cost of direct labor. So we're going to be looking at these two one after the other and see how they are relevant in management decision. So let's take the first one, relevant cost of direct material. In order to determine which material cost is relevant, we need to ask ourselves some yes or no questions so as to determine their relevance. Now, these questions are usually three. In our discourse tonight, we're going to see those three questions. Now, the first one is the material available in stock? That's the first question. It's either going to be a yes answer or a no answer. If you decide that the answer is yes, you are saying that the material is available in stock. You then move to the next question. But if you say that the material is not available in stock, you are saying no, then you are stuck there. It means that if the material is not available in stock, you may need to purchase the material that you need. Hence, the relevant cost at that point is the current purchase cost of the material. So, see how answering the first question in the negative, no, has given us a relevant cost, current purchase cost of the material. When we answer yes to that first question, we move to the next question, which is the second one. Second question, is the material that are available in stock in constant use by the company? So it means that you've answered that the material is available in stock. Now, is the company using it constantly? You could answer yes, you could answer no. Let's assume you answer yes. It means that the company is using it constantly. Then you now want to use that same material that is being used constantly. Somebody else will still need it. So what do? You replace whatever you take for what you're going to do. Hence, the relevant cost is the current replacement cost of the materials. If you decide that the answer is no, it means the stock available is not in constant use. And you move to the next question. The third question is, if the stocks of material that are available in stock but not in constant use by the company, does it mean that the material is scarce in supply? If your answer to that question is yes, it means that this stock is available, it's not in constant use by the company, and it's scarce. Then it must have alternative uses. For it to be scarce, it must be used in an alternative way. So that gives rise to opportunity cost of the material. It means that for you to use that material that is scarce for your purpose, you must forego using it for the other purpose that it is used alternatively. If your answer to that question is no, that it is not scarce, it doesn't have alternative uses, then that means it is not important, not relevant, and the relevant cost will be zero or nil. So whenever some materials that are available and not in regular use by the company, and it is not scarce, then it is zero. And there's a trick to this again. If sometimes the material has to be disposed because it's not in use by the company, it's not scarce, you can get it anywhere, but you now have to dispose it. And you now have to pay to dispose of it. The cost of disposal becomes the relevant cost. Now look at how neatly it is being shown in a chart. Look at the three questions here. Is the material available in stock? If the answer is yes, move to the next question. The answer is no. The current purchase cost of the materials is the relevant cost. Moving to the next question, you ask, is the material that are available in stock, are they in constant use? If it's yes, it has to be replaced. Replacement cost is relevant. If it is no, move to the next question. If the materials are not in constant use by the company, does it mean that they are scarce in supply? If they are yes, look for opportunity costs. If the answer is no, either it's nil, zero value, or you look for the disposal cost and use that disposal cost as the relevant cost. Now let us look at an example to see how we can answer this question on relevant cost. Grace Chica Limited has been asked to quote a price for a one-off contract. The contract would require 5,000 kilograms of material K. Material K is used regularly by the company. The company has 4,000 kilograms of material K currently in inventory, which costs 400 naira per kilogram. The price for material K has since risen to 420 per kilogram. The contract will also require 2,000 kilograms of material Q. There are 1,500 kilograms of material Q in inventory, but because of a decision taken several weeks ago, material Q is no longer in regular use by the company. The 1,500 kilogram originally cost 144,000 and have a scrap value of 36,000. New purchases of material Q would cost 100 naira per kilogram. Required: identify the relevant cost of the material to assist management get a minimum price to charge for the contract. So we are asking here for material relevant cost of material. Okay, so let's look at the solution here. We'll be asking ourselves those 5 questions and, sorry, those 3 questions, and our answers will determine which is the relevant cost. So the first one, we ask the first question because this said we have it will require 5,000 kilograms of material K. So our first question would be, is the 5,000 kilogram required materials available in stock? Answer: the contract says it needs 5,000 kilogram. However, we have 4,000 kilogram that are available in stock right now. And we have 1,000 kilogram that are not available in stock. So it means we can answer yes and no. Is the material available in stock? We could say yes, 4,000 kilograms are available in stock. And because we've said yes to 4,000, we'll move to the next question with regards to the 4,000 kilogram alone. But since we've said no to the 1,000 kilogram that are not available, we shall ask ourselves, since we need this 1,000, we're going to go outside there and purchase it. And so the current market price, current purchase price is important, is relevant. And the question tells us that although the historical cost was 400 naira per kilogram, the price has since risen to 420 naira per kilogram. And so 420 is the relevant cost you are going to use. So you will simply say 420. If you look at the summary here, replacement, okay. Sorry, I'll still show you the summary. But for now, suffice it to say that 1,000 kg multiplied by 420, that would be the relevant cost. Okay, so you can see it here. Additional purchase of 1,000 kg at 420 naira current market price gives you 420,000 naira. So that's that. We go to the next question. Remember, when you answer yes to that question, you go to the next question. Is the material, is the 4,000 kilograms that are in stock, are they being used by the company constantly? So now let's see. They said the material K is used regularly. So there is a constant use of the material. And if there is a constant use of the material, it means that the 4,000 kg that the company already have in stock, if you use it, you will need to replace it. And there's a current replacement cost of 420 naira. So it means that we need 5,000. We need 5,000. You currently have 4,000. If you use those 4,000, you are going to replace. So you see it here, replacement cost of 4,000 at 420 naira gives you 1,680,000. So 4,000 kg is being replaced because what you have in stock is 4,000. 1,000 kg is not replacement, it's additional purchase. Though both of them have the same prices, 420, 420, you should know that 4,000 kg was available. And if you use it, you are replacing it. 1,000 kg was not available. You are buying it as an additional. So it means that you can go to the market and go and buy 5,000 kg that is required for the project. You use 4,000 to replace whatever you have used, and 1,000 goes a long way to solve the shortfall that you have. Now, question 3 is irrelevant because the 4,000 kg are in regular use, and you stopped so far at question 2. Question 3 is irrelevant. So we don't consider question 3 because at question 2, everything has been settled. So for material K, the total relevant cost is 2,100,000. So that's it. Okay, so we now go to material Q. We now look at it that in material Q, the contract will require 2,000 kilograms of material Q. So that's the point of focus. Is the 2,000 kilogram available in stock? What do we say? There are 1,500 kilograms of material Q in inventory. So that answers our questions. We need 2,000. We can say, yes, we have 1,500 in stock. And that means that we are going to move to the next question because for 1,500 kg that we have in stock, takes us to the next question. But since we need 2,000, the difference of 500 kg is not available, then we have to make an additional purchase of that 500 kg. And what is the current market price? 100 naira. So that's how do we know it's 100 naira? They said new purchases of material Q would cost 100 naira per kilogram. So that's why we use 100 naira with the 500 kg. We move to the next question. The 1,500 kg that are in stock, are they in constant use by the company? Let's see how the narrative answers that. Then I said, but because of a decision taken several weeks ago, material Q is no longer in regular use by the company. So it's not in regular use. So we answered no. If we had answered yes, we would have been stuck. But since it is in regular use, we will buy, we will replace. But since they are not in regular use, we ask the third question. If the stock of 1,000 kg is not in regular use, does it mean it is scarce in supply? Let's see. Okay, there is nowhere that says it is scarce in supply. Now, why did the company stop using it? They said they are not, because of a decision taken several weeks ago. So the company stopped using it as a matter of policy. As a matter of policy, not that it was scarce in supply. So if it is not scarce in supply, it means that it will have a nil value. Okay, sorry, if it is not scarce in supply, yes, it will have a nil value. Okay. The only thing that will make it prevent it from having a nil value is if we have a scrap value. So you see the scrap value is, we have the material originally cost 144,000. That is historical cost. It's a sunk cost. But we have a scrap value of 36,000. Scrap value is the value you will get when you eventually sell off that material. That's a future cost. Scrap value is a future cost. So we take the 36,000 instead of the 144,000. So that is the value of that 1,500 kg. So you can see the summary here that relevant cost of material Q is additional purchase of 500 kg at 100 naira gives you 50,000. Opportunity cost of disposing The 1,500 kg is the scrap value of 36,000 naira. Add them together, you have 86,000. So if you want to know the total cost of material, all you need to do is add the total relevant cost of material, 2,100,000, with the material K, right? Plus material Q, everything gives you 2,186,000. Okay, so we have looked at relevant cost of material. Let's look at relevant cost of labor, because we said material and labor are the two most frequently used in performance management, and they are variable costs. They are relevant costs. In order to determine which labor cost is relevant, we will also ask 3 yes or no questions, just as we did in material cost. And our answers to those questions will determine which of the relevant costs apply. The first question to ask is the labor that is available, is it in permanent employment? If the answer is yes, that the labor charge, the workforce or labor force is in permanent employment, you will move to the next question. But if we say that the labor we have available for the contract is not in permanent employment, it means that if you are to hire them to do the job, you are to pay them per hour for any job that you do. Because they're not in permanent employment, you are hiring them specifically for the job. And so you're going to pay them hourly pay for that job. So the hourly rate is relevant. Now, we move to the next question when we answered that it was permanent labor that is available. You ask, the permanent labor that is available, do they have spare capacity? What do we mean by spare capacity? It means that if you are working at less than 100% of your capacity, you have spare capacity. If you are working on 90%, 80%, you have spare capacity. Now, another thing is that if you do not spend all your time working, there are times that maybe you are resting, doing nothing, idle. Some use that time to maybe play computer games on their phone or on their system to have idle time. Now, whenever a company have idle time, the relevant cost is always nil. Why is it nil? And why is temporary employment not nil, but permanent employment is nil? This is because you can never allocate idle time with temporary employment. You pay them per hour. And so if you see them idle, you will not pay them for that time that they're idle. For permanent workers, you are paying them for doing nothing. You've already paid them. And so whenever a permanent worker is idle and you have to draft him to do a contract on his spare capacity, you're not going to pay him extra for doing that job on his spare capacity because you've already paid him and he's idle. So whenever you identify that a permanent labor is having a spare capacity, it is zero relevant cost. So one thing about spare capacity is only talked about in permanent labor. You do not talk about capacity in temporary labor. You only talk about capacity in permanent labor. All right. Now, assuming you answered no, it means that they don't have idle time. They work all the time that you are seeing them at work. you move to the next question. Now the question is, since there is no spare capacity, is it possible to have overtime? Okay, how can overtime come about? Let's say some workers who work Monday to Friday, let's say 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, no spare capacity, they are working all the time. You ask yourself, is it possible that they can do overtime? If it is possible, maybe instead of closing 5 o'clock, they stay extra 2 hours just to do this project. That extra hours, you're going to pay them. So overtime rate is possible. It could be that, okay, you want them to come 1 hour before the work time and pay them for that extra time. Then they will stay back 1 hour after work, that's 2 hours. You pay them. Or you tell them to come on Saturday and do a full day job on that project alone. You're going to pay them for that. So it's like they have gone beyond their permanent employment contract. You're not seeing them as recruits for doing the job, just like you do for temporary workers. Now, assuming that there is no overtime, let's say you ask them and they can't come earlier than 8 o'clock or they can't stay beyond 5 o'clock. And they can't come on weekend. Overtime is not possible. What do you do? And you want to do that contract. You might not have to stop doing something. Forgo, okay, tell them, okay, since you cannot do overtime, suspend everything you're doing right now and take some time to do this contract. They'll say, oh, if we stop what we're doing now, we're going to lose some contribution. Yes, we're going to lose contribution. That is the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost will be incurred. That opportunity cost is relevant. Let's now see the nice diagram here. This is the diagram for the relevant cost of direct labor. So it's just the same way like relevant cost of material, just that the questions are different and the type of relevant costs are different. Let's look at example 2 to see how we can apply relevant cost of labor. Augusta Chineye Limited has been asked to quote a price for a one-off contract. We keep hearing the word one-off contract. Now, one-off contract is a contract that you take once in a while, it doesn't come often. Like we said in the last class, it's a once in a blue moon job. One-off, you may not expect it again. Okay, so, but the thing is, you may be using your materials and labor available for your regular job to do this one-off contract. And so there is a need for you to use a relevant cost analysis to evaluate one-off contracts. So this company, Augusta Chineye Limited, has been asked to quote a price for a one-off contract. The contract will be done in their 3 departments, known as Department 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so these are the departments in that company. So you may be asking yourself, will there not be permanent staff working in the department? Okay, let's see what will happen. Department 1, the contract will require 200 hours of work in Department 1, where the workforce is paid 160 naira per hour for a fixed 40-hour week. There is currently spare labor capacity in Department 1, and there are no plans to reduce the size of the workforce in that department. Department 2, the contract will require 100 hours of work in Department 2, where the workforce is paid 240 naira per hour. This department is currently working at full capacity. The company would could ask the workforce to do overtime work paid for at their normal rate per hour plus 50% overtime premium. Alternatively, the workforce could be diverted from other work that earn a contribution of 80 naira per hour. Department 3. The contract will require 300 hours of work in Department 3, where the workforce is paid 240 naira per hour. Labor in this department is in short supply, and all the available time is currently spent making product Z, which earns the following contribution. We have selling price is 980, labor hours, we are told 2 hours per unit for 480. Then we have other variable costs. Those other variable costs could be material costs and other production labor and other production variable costs, which is 300 naira per unit. When we add them together, our total variable cost becomes 780. And when we remove 780 from 980, we have our contribution per unit of Z is 200 naira per unit. Required. What is the relevant cost for the contract of labor in the 3 departments? So we want to know the relevant cost. So how do we get to find the relevant cost of labor? Okay, so this is what we do to get the relevant cost of labor. Solution. Let's ask those 3 questions again. In Department 1, we'll ask the 3 questions. They said the contract will require 200 hours of work in Department 1. Okay, so the question is, Department 1, the department there is in permanent labor employment. How do we know? There is something that they said here. The workforce is paid 160 naira per hour. Now take note, for a fixed 40-hour week. You don't do that for temporary workers, and you are paying them 160 naira fixed for a 40-hour week. So it means here that you are going to multiply 160 times 40 hours a week, and you pay those workers. Whether they do up to 40 hours or not, it doesn't matter. You have fixed it at 40 hours. That is the minimum they can get. You don't do that for temporary workers. So you see here that the Department 1 workers are permanent. Then when we say that they are permanent, the next question is here that the department has spare capacity. Spare capacity. We mentioned here that whenever there is a spare capacity, it means there is permanent labor and the spare capacity for permanent labor here is 0. Their time has already been paid for. So the relevant cost in Department 1 is 0. That's it. So we move to Department 2. Department 2 has some permanent staff there. How do we know? Now look at it here. Department 2, the contract will require 100 hours of work in Department 2, where the workforce is paid 240 naira per hour. Okay, that doesn't tell us whether it is permanent or if it is temporary, because they could recruit some temporary staff there, we're paying them 200 hours. They said the department is currently working at full capacity. So it means that I said capacity has to do with the permanence of labor. And they also spoke about the company could ask the workforce to do overtime. You don't ask temporary staff to do overtime. Any amount of time he works, you pay him for that. But when you say, please do overtime, you are talking to permanent staff. And it means you're going to pay them more for that overtime than what you are paying them currently. So this indicates that this is a permanent labor who is in employment here, and they have no spare capacity. You see, you are working at full capacity. So we've asked the first question, is it in permanent labor? Yes. Do they have spare capacity? No. We're now at the third question. Is overtime possible? Here we see that the company asking them to do overtime. And if overtime is possible, look at what they'll be paying them. They'll be paying them for the normal rate. They'll pay them for the normal 240 naira plus 50% overtime. So 50% plus 50% of 240 is 120. So 120, which is overtime, plus the 240 is 360. So what you will now do is 360 multiplied by 100 hours. That will give you 36,000. But you see here that you would have taken that course, because asking them to do overtime is asking them to do overtime. It's a choice if they agree. So gotten 36,000. But now you say alternatively, which is another choice. So once we are saying choice upon choice, relevant. The workforce could be diverted from other work that earns a contribution of 80 naira. So if you divert them from any job that is giving them 80 naira per hour, that's a lost contribution. So what you will now do is 80 naira per hour multiplied by 100 hours that will be used. So 80 naira, which is the lost contribution, plus the normal 240 that you're going to pay them, because you're going to pay the workforce for doing that job 240 naira. So even though they are permanent staff, but because you have diverted them from their normal job and giving them this job, it's as good as you have recruited them to do the job. So you're going to pay them the 240 plus you're going to add the lost contribution of 80 naira. So it means that you're going to be paying them how much? 320. So 320 naira multiplied by 100 gives you 32,000. Now you compare 32,000 to 36,000. The company will like to choose the cheaper alternative. So instead of going for 36,000, they will go for 32,000. They will prefer to get an opportunity cost, lose that 80 naira, than to tell them to do overtime. Because doing overtime, the company will pay too much. We'll go to Department 3. Here they said the contract will require 300 hours of work in Department 3, where the workforce is paid 240 hours, naira per hour. And they said labor in this department is in short supply. So it's possible that they will need to recruit temporary labor for this work. And if they do that, they're going to pay them 240 naira per hour. But look at what it said. The company is in short supply, and all the time is spent in making another product. So the company do not have intent of employing temporary staff. How do we know? Because they told us that they are making a product and they can stop that product. They can stop that product to do that project. That is why they gave you the details of that project, of that product they're doing. So the lost contribution of how much? 200 naira per unit is going to be relevant there. Okay, so if they stop making product Z during the 300 hours, okay, it will require 300 hours. And if they stop making product Z and divert that time in making their project, this one-off contract, they will lose 200 naira per product in that 300 hours. So it means that how many units will they lose in that 300 hours? If you look at it very well, 1 unit, they spend 200, 1 unit, they spend 2 hours making 1 unit. If they have to spend 300 hours, it means they would have produced 300 divided by 2, which is 150 units. 150 units would have been lost by stopping this product and focusing on the one-off contract. So this 150 units that is going to be lost multiplied by 200 naira. That is what we do here. 150 units lost multiplied by lost contribution of 200 naira. It means that 30,000 naira is a lost contribution, which must be recognized. So what it means is that in Department 3, we are going to work for 300 hours. We are going to pay the workforce 240 naira per hour for doing the normal job, which will cost the company 72,000 naira. But they are losing 30,000 naira. So that cost they are going to lose, they're going to add it to the cost of the contract. So you add them together, you have 102,000 naira. So let's look at what is the total relevant cost for labor. Department 1, the labor cost is 0. For Department 2, we're told it's 32,000. This 32,000 was as a result of diverting job instead of overtime. And this Department 3 is what we just considered now. 102,000 is also when you stop making a product, divert the time to make this project. Everything here gives us 134,000. So that's it. So far so good. We have come to the end of this lecture. We've looked at certain costs and we've classified them as either relevant or non-relevant. Can you remember those costs that are relevant? Let's see if we can. We said variable costs are relevant. We said incremental costs are relevant. We also said avoidable costs are relevant. We also said that costs that have cash flow are relevant. Mentioned 4. Then we said opportunity costs are relevant. The non-relevant costs, can we remember them? We said fixed costs. We also said unavoidable costs. We said sunk costs. And we also have committed costs. Okay, so we also considered relevant cost of material. What are those 3 questions we asked when we are considering material? We said, is the material available in stock? If your answer is yes, you move to the next question. If your answer is no to that, it means you will need to buy the material you need at the current market price. Now, when you move to the next question, because you said material is available in stock, the next thing to ask is the material in constant use? If you say yes, it means whatever you pick from that material and use, we are going to replace it. So the replacement cost at the current market price is relevant. If you said no, we'll go to the next question. And since you said no, they are not in constant use, they are in the next question, you ask again, is the material in scarce supply? If the answer is yes, then look for the alternative uses and opportunity cost is relevant. If the material is not scarce, then you apply a zero value as the relevant cost, or look for the disposal cost and take it as the relevant cost. These were the three questions we talked about in material. Then for labor, we also considered three questions to show whether labor is a relevant cost. First one is the labor in permanent employment. If they are, you move to the next question. If they are not in permanent employment, you are going to pay them their hourly labor rates. That is relevant. Now we move to the next question because they're in permanent employment. You ask, is there spare capacity? If there is, the value is nil value for spare capacity. If there is no capacity, no spare capacity, move to the next question. The third question is overtime possible? If it is, the overtime premium is relevant. If it is not possible to do overtime, then there must be an opportunity cost. You must stop doing something in order to achieve your project. So that lost contribution will be added to the cost of doing that project. This is the thing we talked about here in relevant cost, and I do hope that when you see any question that has to do with material and labor relevant cost analysis, you will remember these three questions and use them wisely. Relevant cost is going to be a cheap question for you from now on. So go now and look for questions that has to do with relevant cost and try your hands on them. Thank you so much for coming to class. Okay, some people were giving me the type of non-relevant cost. Thank you, Chiamaka, for that. Okay, so I want to thank you all for coming to class. I wish I could see your faces. So at this point, I would like to ask you if it's possible to show your face at least for 30 seconds or so. Let me see how you are doing. Because in the next 1 minute, we are going to be ending the class. Thank you so much, Chiamaka. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Debode, thank you so much for showing your face. Madam Ramatu, I'm yet to see your face. Briefly. Maybe I should also hide my face too, right? All right. So thank you all for coming to class. See you again next week, Monday, when we will have another topic to discuss. Do have a nice day.